Okay, hello. My name is Julie Klopp. I am a facilitator of Scott Killaby's Living Inquiries. With me today, I have Scott Killaby,
Hello.
who is the founder of Living Inquiries, and also Fiona Robertson, who is one of the senior facilitators. There's a lot of information out there on the web already about the inquiries themselves. And at the end of this, we'll give some information about how you can find that. What we want to do today is something a little bit different. We want to talk about very specifically how the inquiries relate to or can be helpful in health issues. So I just wanted to ask you, Scott and Fiona, what your experiences have been for yourself personally with health issues and also with people that you have worked with, and any suggestions you might have for people, using this themselves. So yeah, Scott, we'll start with you.
Sure. There's so many things that I could talk about. It's kind of hard to narrow it down to one when it comes to my own experience. I mean, obviously, the addictions that I had been dealing with for years were deeply affected by this kind of work, this kind of looking. And I could say more about that, but just having been diagnosed with cancer and then using these inquiries for whatever popped up during that time. Not a lot popped up, but whatever did pop up was really, I was able to be with it in a different way because of these inquiries helped tremendously. There's also just lots of things that have sort of gone away through the years that I think that I forgot because they've gone away. And that's the thing about it. For example, I used to have, for my drug use, I used to have this pain in my spine that would travel. It would be sometimes in the back of my neck, and sometimes it would be in the back, and it would sort of travel. And through looking at that with the inquiries, I don't have that pain anymore. And that's one of those things that's gone, so I have to actually remember that that was. Um, yeah, so definitely helpful on all of the health issues that I've experienced, because I think mainly what we do is we, through the inquiries, we set with whatever is coming up in a really, how do you describe it, in a really gentle but thorough way, so that we're really not bypassing anything in our experience. If an emotion comes up, we're sitting with that emotion. If there's a thought or a belief that comes up, we look at that and and use the inquiries on that. If physical sensations are there, we sit with those. So really, it's been helpful for, I mean, gosh, I can even remember when I was recovering from surgery, how helpful it was. Just to take a look for the threat or whatever else. And then, there's a lot that can be said just about how it's opened up certain areas of my body where there were contractions. After the surgery for testicular cancer, I had quite a hefty contraction in my pelvic area, and that was there for several months. But as soon as I started looking at it with the inquiries, it started to unravel. I had to look a couple of times, and then that area opened up, and that's been the same for a lot of different parts of my body, which has had a major healing effect on me.
Now, you'd mentioned in a little email in my health room about how the nerve pain had gone away through the inquiries, and I was curious, was that specific? Did you inquire specifically into the nerve pain, or was it just a side effect of all the other inquiry?
I think that it started with the pain, looking at the pain, but what came up was it felt as if, frankly, I think what happened is that during the time when I was doing a certain drug years ago, ecstasy, this well of emotion came up of sadness and love and all this stuff, but it felt like too much. And as soon as the drug wore off, it's like that energy, and I don't know whether this was really what happened, but that's what came up in the inquiries. That energy just felt like it was stuck there in my neck. And so a lot of the work that I was doing was around being able to express emotion, feel emotion, the stories around that. So and connected to that was the pain, the sensation. Somehow in that, something got unhooked. So yeah.
What about you, Fiona, personally? What have you experienced?
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that I'm sitting here with you in Maryland in the States itself is testament to what the inquiries have done for me. I mean, for something like 8 years, I'd not travelled at all, and I found it very difficult to even, go about my life, catch buses, even within the city that I live. And what I find fascinating is that it's not like things necessarily disappear even. I mean, sometimes they do, but what I found with repeated looking at all the health issues I have, which I'll say a bit more about in a minute, is that life just seemed to widen out. Even if sometimes it felt like I felt the same, somehow there was a difference. So, for example, one of the things I've had is migraines. And the migraines used to come with a whole story. So I'd be lying there in bed for a day with all this stuff going through my mind, like, oh, I really should have solved this by now. There's obviously something here that I've not understood that I really need to see. And I'd go through lots of old memories. And over a few months of looking with inquiries, that just stopped. So if I do have a headache now, I've just got a headache. There's no big story around it. There's no sense of my failure or all the other stuff that used to come up with it. And like Scott says, more and more now, the overt stories in life seem to have died down. And when I come to look, it's very often to look at a sensation or a contraction or something in my body. And what I find then is the deeper, more unconscious emotions that have been buried all this time. So usually I have no idea at the start of a session what's going to come up.
Yeah.
I'm simply with the energy, with the sensation, and then whatever emerges is whatever emerges, and that's fine. And usually there's something that hasn't been seen before, that I didn't realise was operating in the way that it's operating. So it's a real gift.
Yeah, like you, I just experienced a lot more ease. Really good out of the picture here. Yeah, just a lot more ease around stuff. I mean, not all health issues magically resolve from the inquiries, but I find that it doesn't seem to matter so much. There's, yeah, like I said, the story is gone, and when there's no story, it's just not as big of a deal. It's just, okay, well, maybe I need to do this now. And it doesn't mean I don't treat something. You know, I'm working with an
Yeah.
Ayurvedic doctor, and I do what he tells me to. And, you know, I think things are slowly getting better, but there's just a real ease and there's no hurry about it.
Mm.
You know, it's like this moment is fine. Okay, there's a pain, there's something wrong. But the moment's good. Okay, I'll do my treatment, I'll do my medicine. And it'll resolve, you know, or not. There's not this, oh my God, I gotta get better right now.
Yeah, that brings me up to something that's still sort of lingering around for me is stomach pain when I eat certain foods. So, you know, that was diagnosed with gastritis. But what shows up if I eat certain foods is that well, for a long time I would be doubled over, you know, like in excruciating pain, like there would be no position that would be comfortable. And there were at least one time and close to a couple of other times, it got so bad that I was, you know, sort of demanding my partner to drive to the emergency room because, you know, but then when I started working with these inquiries, I can tell you that has not gone, that it recurs a lot less, and when it does, like you're saying, is or you were saying that it's easier just to feel right into the middle of the sensation and rest with it, and then look at any of the words and the pictures that go with it, and somehow when those kind of quiet down, there's just the sensation, and it may last for a little while, but it's certainly not like it was before, and it's certainly reduced, and
And you had hot sauce for lunch.
and I had hot sauce for lunch, yeah. But just like you were saying, that doesn't mean that I don't, you know, do certain things. Like I won't eat citrus. I turn down the citrus for lunch that you offer me for that reason because, you know, there's still practical things that we can do. But a lot of the worry and stress, like you say, is kind of falls away from this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, a real big thing for me is that so often we hear spiritual teachers or other people say, sit with an energy. And if you sit with it with the stories, with the words and the images attached, then you're just wallowing in it and nothing really happens.
Yeah.
And so that's the beauty of the inquiries is they pull the words and they pull the images off the energies. So whether it's something emotional or whether it's something that's going on physically in the body, there's just a chance to really just be with it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think having over the years done all sorts of different practices or healing methods, you know, one of the things that I love about the work that we do is that there isn't an implication anywhere in it that somehow we've caused our own illness. And that was something that I always really struggled with, and I'm sure we've all come across that.
Yeah.
That there's a sense of shame that we carry around not being in perfect health. There's a sense, obviously, fear that comes with that. But somehow the deep down sense that we've done something to cause it, which I think is very common for people. And that we have no angle on how all this has happened. We're simply looking at what's here.
Yeah.
So we're not applying a theory. We're not looking at it and saying, you have to accept this, for example, in a kind of way. And I hear the relief in people's voices, as I'm sure all of us do, when they're taken through the inquiry and realise that that drive to fix, the shame around not being okay, all of that can just start to ebb away. And that underlying assumption that there's something wrong with us, which I think is often linked to illnesses or conditions, we can see that actually there isn't something wrong. Me having a pain in my head didn't actually mean there's something fundamentally wrong with you. Which had always been the assumption.
That's been a big assumption that I've had to explore also, that, there's this pain, it must mean something's wrong. Yeah.
Well, also, just it brings it up because going to my own experience with addiction, okay? So, the way that you brought that up is when I was exploring some of the different contractions in my body, there were definitely stories there about myself, but I don't remember creating those stories. So I can't. So this work, you can't take responsibility for creating the stories because at some point in my life, my stomach, whether it was when I was born or later, felt created a contraction in my pelvic area and my throat. And when I looked at the stuff as it was presently arising, stories came up like, you can't express, you're not free to express, or something, lots of other things. But it wasn't that I would take, like you said, that you would take that on as being true. You would actually investigate it. You would investigate those words and pictures just to kind of, like you said, peel them, let them be as they are so that they get peeled off of this sensation. And, because that helps a lot because so many times in addiction, the idea is that, I can't stop. I created this, or it's in my family, or I'm a victim of this addiction. And there's like this moral condemnation of self. And so that's exactly what we don't do. In fact, we deconstruct that, if anything.
It's interesting, isn't it, that often our response to illness is one of two things, isn't it? We either go into, I'm helpless, I can't do anything about this, it's totally beyond me, or we go into, okay, I have to beat this, and we sort of...
I'm going to surf the internet all day.
Absolutely. We're on a mission to find the cure or to find the thing that works. And it's such a relief to be in neither camp now, to be able to look at whatever comes up without any of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about illnesses that can really bring up the long health deficiency stories, don't you think? I mean, they really have a way of bringing it up. And I know when I got cancer, when the doctor said you have cancer, I didn't feel that fear that people felt. But what happened is that afterwards, when all these people came rushing to me to say, here, try this, try that, try this, I did feel quite triggered. And the thing was, it was just an old story that I gotten from my dad. That was that I was helpless, and that I can't take care of myself because my parents would have always took care of me. And then so all of these people were coming up to me, and just so that illness gave me the opportunity to look at that story in a way that it may not have come up so strongly before. There's something about illness that has a way of being a doorway, really, to seeing the most deeply rooted stuff that we're carrying around. So that's kind of a hidden gift in all this.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that's been the biggest area that I have inquired into. I mean, for me, the spiritual seeking disappeared through the inquiry, and the big overarching theme for me that's left was the seeking for perfect health.
Yeah.
And having to, because that was going to somehow save me. Enlightenment wasn't going to do it, so I better get healthy.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I recognise that one very much. And I think for me, one of the things that's been so wrapped up in illness, and we saw this in the health course that we did with a bunch of people in the summer, how much fear and anxiety there is wrapped up in all of this. And I think one of the things that's been interesting for me is to see that I'd always assumed that certain sensations meant there was something wrong and therefore there was something to be fearful about, that there was something threatening, and to actually decouple those two things and to see that actually a certain pain or sensation doesn't automatically mean that there's something wrong and therefore fear arises, is again such a gift, because we never actually stop to look.
Right.
Usually do we go into whatever anxiety we have about something, thoughts and images are there. And unless we take the time to do what we do and really examine each component of that, it's going to operate in the same old way, isn't it? Despite all our attempts to not go down that road.
Right. Yeah, but there's also another area of this, is just like the healthcare issue. So if you get diagnosed, you know, unless you go an alternative route where you're working with herbs or something else. If you go into traditional medicine, I mean, sometimes they're poking needles in every place, and they're putting dye in your body, or they're taking blood, or what other invasive procedure, and just to have a way to look for the threat with the anxiety inquiry and all of that has a profound effect, because that scares people. I mean,
Well, I know in the Facebook group it's come up a few times around trips to the dentist.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that's another part of it. I think it's not just health conditions; it's the treatment.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, sometimes the treatment can seem nastier than the disease.
Yeah.
So, and what have you experienced, both of you? Because I know you've worked with a whole lot of people, probably. What have you seen with clients with this?
The same thing, really.
Very similar. I mean, I think for me, over and over, it's unraveling those hidden assumptions that we have. So, just as one example, I worked with somebody who had been diagnosed with a long-term health condition about 20 years ago. And so for 20 years, she'd been looking for what was wrong, because although she had a diagnosis, she felt that if she could just find the thing that was wrong and fix that, then the whole condition would resolve. So obviously, like many of us, she'd been to see all sorts of different people. And so I did a session with her looking for what was wrong. And by the end of it, she said how incredible it was that she'd spent 20 years assuming that something was wrong, and therefore she needed to find it.
Mm-hmm.
And what she found was that there was nothing wrong. She couldn't find something that was wrong. And that was a huge relief to her, because then it unravels the whole idea itself, which is not to say, obviously, that her symptoms magically disappeared. But if they're no longer perceived as wrong, then there's a complete shift in how we experience things.
Yes.
And that's just one example. I mean, that sort of thing has come up many, many times.
There's so many examples. Yeah, just like I wouldn't even know where to start. How you work with so many different people. The one that's popping up right now, for some reason, is a guy that I worked with who had physical pain, and he was very convinced that it was just a physical thing. And many people say that, it's physical, Scott. You can't help me. It's like somehow that word, or physiological, is the word that sort of says inquiry can't help me. And I love working with those people to show them that's not at all a barrier. But for him, it was a physical pain. But when we started to investigate the words and pictures, what was coming up were like the memories of the situation that caused the pain, that seemed to cause the pain, and then the treatment when you went into the doctor, the procedure, the memories of those, and then the words that went with it. And all of that was playing into the physical sensation. It actually wasn't just a physical sensation, even though he was saying that. It was actually a play of words and pictures. And as we went through all that stuff, he certainly got a reduction in pain. He was actually very amazed by it. There's so many other situations. I mean, diabetes, like people who have terminal illnesses that I've worked with, withdrawing from drugs, uh, just a lot of different things. And it's not. I don't want to paint the picture, and none of us do, that you sort of have one session and magically you never stress out again about this stuff. Sometimes that can happen.
Be out of work.
Yeah, be out of work. But sometimes you have to work with it a little while to really, and sometimes there's just some resistance that you have to get over, even to look at some of these things before you really dive deep. Yeah.
I mean, this type of looking really takes us into all the stuff that we've been trying to avoid or evade or distract ourselves from, doesn't it? Even if we've found really clever ways of doing that. So certainly, for a long time, I felt that I was really in touch with my emotions and really feeling my feelings. But even within that, there was still some resistance. There was still some distraction. And we're not going to be able to do that in a day. This is stuff that we've been avoiding for decades, isn't it? I mean, interestingly, I was working with someone earlier today, and he said something which I think comes up a lot, which was when he actually felt the thing that he was resisting feeling. The feeling of it was easier than the resistance. You know, which so often occurs, doesn't it? That we have this sense of, oh my God, if I actually let go into feeling this, I'll be destroyed in some way, or it'll be terrifying. And actually, the anticipation of it is nearly always worse than the actuality, isn't it? Except that we've been carrying around this stuff, like you say, for a really long time. So it tends to get amplified. When we actually look at it, it's not half as bad as we thought.
Yeah. And do you have anything else to share? Because I know you've worked through a lot of stuff in health. Is there anything that you...
Well, I guess I'll just share what happened yesterday with me. My Ayurvedic doctor recommended some breath work, and I know breath work doesn't agree with me, but everything else he's recommended has been great, so I tried it. And I didn't sleep well the night before last, and I was pretty wigged out yesterday. All I could get was this image of me just wanting to go sit in the corner and wail. That's how bad it was inside. So Fiona gave me a session at the end of the day because I'm like almost in panic mode. Like, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. I've got this really bad headache. My whole body hurts. And a lot of what I was looking at was like really deep core stuff. But by the time we were done, I felt so much calmer. The headache had probably come down like 75%. And I slept fantastic last night. Probably some of the deepest sleep that I've had. So sometimes there is like an immediate, when just something like that, crops up, there can be a very immediate result. I mean, I just say overall, generally I sleep better.
Feel better.
I do. Generally have more energy, feel better. Yesterday was like noticeably bad because it hasn't happened in so long. That used to be kind of my ongoing experience often of disrupted sleep and achy body and wanting to just sit in a corner and wail.
Yeah, and I don't know about you two, but sometimes it's being more sensitive to sensations in a way, because it's like whatever ways I was trying to distract myself and just not look at something, then it gets to the place where it's harder and harder to do that, so that you actually become sensitive to pain in a new way.
Yeah.
But you have a way to look at it, which is different, so that it doesn't get so knotted up and last more than whatever it lasts. And I just want to bring one other thing up. This is on my mind too, is that because I travel around and do all these talks, and people are often looking for awakening. And not everybody, but a lot of them are actually dealing with some sort of medical issue, or trying to be healthy or something. And the idea is that there's there's going to be some awakening down the road that's just going to wipe all of that away. And that's one of the things that we try to deconstruct with this work, because really it's like a moment by moment looking at whatever is actually coming up, instead of like some end game that we're getting to.
Right.
And it's not even about seeking when you take this stuff on. It's not even about trying to get somewhere. It's really about just investigating your experience. And I think, to me, that's more sane, instead of looking for some magic moment in the future that's going to put us in total bliss and never have us feel a sensation again. How about just taking a look at your experience as it comes up? And I think that when people start doing that, they stop seeking. That the self-improvement seeking and the enlightenment seeking drop away at that point, because they're just looking in a different way. That's important to say, I think.
Yeah, that was certainly my experience, that I was hoping for some endpoint, either through a great homeopathic remedy or enlightenment, or the end point would change from time to time. But the idea was, I need to create some point in the future in which all of this is okay and all of this is resolved. And I think looking at your present experience, when you first hear about that, sounds A, either dull, or B, really don't want to go there.
Frightening. Well, I don't like my present experience. I don't want to be here.
Completely. Yeah. And yeah, there's such amazing stuff here when we really look, isn't there? And the whole notion of there being this endpoint in the future then dissolves. And again, that's a real gift, isn't it? Because then you're fully here, and whatever's here is okay, even when it's not okay.
It's kind of weird.
Absolutely, it is, isn't it? And it's difficult to describe, but I think that sense of whatever's here is okay just broadens out our capacity, doesn't it? Our ability to bear what's here.
Yeah.
increases hugely through this looking. And that means that actually, you know, we realise that we are okay as we are.
Yeah. And it's not just necessarily seeking enlightenment, it's just self-improvement or even the perfect health.
Yeah, any kind of
Yeah.
seeking the perfect partner, the perfect job,
Yeah,
someday when
right.
I have tons of money.
Or I'm fully recovered,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
from whatever it is. Yeah.
Definitely.
My dog's eyes stop weeping. So, just kind of before we wrap up, any suggestions? I mean, there's a lot of people that talk about how can I do this on my own. I mean, always working with a facilitator, we always say, is the ideal at least to kind of, you know, get your feet wet, get your feet under you, you know, understand how this works. But a lot of people say, I want to be able to do it on my own. So, any suggestions around the health issues that people can do, simple ways that they can explore this on their own?
Well, the thing is that is difficult to do on your own unless you either read my book or you listen or you read an article that one of us have written or watch a video where we explain it. But even the explanation is not the same as doing it. So at some point you're going to have to. In a facilitation, it's an interactive process where there's someone guiding you through it, and there's something about that interactive process that is unique. But I inquired on my own from the beginning and still do it today. A lot of the other facilitators do. I think you have to familiarize yourself with this way of looking before you start. You have to know exactly what it is that we're doing, because it's not just meditation, it's not just witnessing, it's not any of the other things. It's not the who am I inquiry. It's really its own unique way. And I think until you see what we're doing, the effectiveness of this work doesn't come through. Yeah.
Yeah, that was certainly my experience. I mean, for sure, watching videos and reading books all helps. I think, as we know, working with a facilitator one-on-one, also the facilitator can guide people on what would work best for them. I mean, ultimately, it's very simply looking at words, seeing images as they arise, and feeling feelings. But it's really helpful to have some guidance on how to do that to be effective.
Now, having said that, we as you know, this work is developing, and as we go, we're going to have more videos and more writings
Absolutely.
that are going to be helpful. You know, we're just still in the beginning of this, but there's going to be more available as we go. Yeah. I mean, here's the one thing I would say is that if you don't know how to do the anxiety inquiry, learn it, because it has such a broad application, and especially to health issues, and it's actually really simple when you're looking at words, pictures, and energy individually, and you're asking, you know, is there a threat on those words? Is there a threat on that picture? Is there a threat on that energy? Now, it's not quite just that, because there's this few nuanced things you have to know when you're looking.
But it still is helpful, though, I think. Like for me, sometimes just something will pop up, whatever it is. It could be around health, it could be anything, and I'll just find myself asking, where's the threat?
Yeah.
And I may not take it apart towards images and energies, but I may just, where's the threat?
Where is it?
And then it just kind of, a lot of times, it just dissolves right there.
Yeah. And then if it doesn't just dissolve and you actually do the inquiry, a good thing to know is that when we're asking the question, we're always asking about one of three things: words, pictures, and energy. Instead of instead of it being intellectual, like, well, where's the threat in me going to the doctor? Because then your mind can get involved, and you could sort of say, well, there's no threat in going to the doctor because I'm probably not going to have anything wrong with me. Well, that's just the mind. So we would say, whatever comes up, you look at the words, look at the picture.
Pull up that image of your doctor's face or the doctor's office. You know, where's the threat in that image?
Right.
Okay. So if anybody wants more information, I guess we'll just each can give our website, and each of those websites links to all kinds of stuff. My website is freedomfromsuffering.me.
Mine is killaby.com, and from there you can either go to the addiction site or to the living inquiry site.
And mine's beyondourbeliefs.org.
Okay. Well, this has been great. I'm glad we could all kind of get together here and chat about this.
That's right.
Thanks, Julie.